We have another great question from our friend Lucas. Lucas asks about 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Specifically, at the end of verse 8, some translations say love and others say charity. What does the Greek say? Let's take a look. We'll start with 1 Peter 4, 7 and 8 in the ESV. The end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. So at question is the phrase, love covers a multitude of sins. Let's take a look at it. Hoti agape, kalupte, plethos hamartion. So hoti, because, agape, love, kalupte, covers, hides, or removes from view. And then plethos is a multitude, hamartion, of sins. So the phrase says, because love covers a multitude of sins. So agape is an unconditional love or favor. It is love without pre-qualifications, right? It's that kind of pure, overwhelming, godly sort of love. Kalupte is the present active indicative third person singular of the verb kalupto, and it means I cover, I hide, or I remove from sight. I remove from view. In Homer's Iliad, he writes about Menelaus, the king of Sparta. At the heart of the troubles are Helen of Troy, Menelaus's wife, and whether or not where she would finally reside. And Menelaus is described as having his back covered, and it's the verb kalupto, with the skin of a panther. And this is pretty significant. His back is covered or hidden by a panther skin. Does that mean that Menelaus didn't have a back or that he had his back removed? No, it does not. His back was covered. It was out of sight. So Peter says that love puts a multitude of sins out of sight. Okay? It doesn't say that love results in the forgiveness of those sins, because he's encouraging people to continue to show love. He says that love removes from sight a multitude of sins. That's pretty significant. Forgiveness of sins is the purview of God and is a separate issue from loving others so that their sins may be removed from sight, so they may be obscured. So first he says, the time is short, watch yourself, keep on loving one another. This idea comes from Proverbs 10, verse 12, that says, hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. Right? So if you can focus on people's wrongdoings, and that's going to stir up strife, but if you make the decision to love them, it'll cover up their wrongdoings. You can move on together if you're willing to show love. This notion is fleshed out even better in James chapter 5, verse 20. Let's read that in the ESV. My brothers, if anyone among you wanders from the truth and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins. So two things are going to happen. They're both future tense verbs. Sose, he will save, and kalupse, he will cover, plethos hamartion, a multitude of sins. Right, so we get that same phrasing, cover a multitude of sins, except the verb here is in the future tense versus 1 Peter. So the saving and the covering of the multitudes of sin are both important. Love for the stray facilitates reconciliation and restoration, both with God and with the community. So to me, the best example of this is in the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son. The son tells dad, "Dad, drop dead. Give me what I have coming to me now. I don't want to wait till you die." Goes off and lives riotously, squanders the money. When he's starving, he decides to go home and ask for a job, not to be a son, but to be like a hired hand. And as he's approaching home, there stands his father waiting for him. His father picks up his robes and runs to him, welcomes him home, puts sandals on his feet, puts the best robe around his shoulders, puts the family signet ring on his finger, has the fatted calf slaughtered, throws a huge party. The father shows this undeserved love, this over-the-top, unmerited love for the son in the presence of everyone. And what does that do for the son? It not only signals that he's being restored in relationship with his father, but it covers over his sins. It removes from sight his sins in the eyes of everybody else in the household and the community. Come on, everybody, let's have a party. My son was dead, but he's alive again. We're not here to talk about what he did wrong. We're here to welcome him back home and restore him and reconcile with him so we can all move forward. Isn't that magnificent? That is what is meant by love covering, hiding, obscuring, removing from sight a multitude of sins. If all we do is continually talk about the wrongs that someone did, we can say that they're forgiven, but it's very difficult to move forward together until we're willing to say, I'm not going to treat you today based on what you did yesterday. I'm making the conscious decision to love you so that we don't have to look at that anymore. Does Menelaus still have a back? Yes, he does, but it's covered by the panther skin. Did the prodigal son commit a slew of sins against his father and his community? Yes, he did, but the father's love covers, removes from sight those sins, and allows for reconciliation and restoration. So let's read it again from 1 Peter and bring this around full circle. The end of all things is at hand. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Don't let your disapproval of someone's sins keep them away from forgiveness, reconciliation, and restoration with God or with the community. Covering of sins, obscuring them from sight, removing them from sight so that we can move forward together. Thanks, Lucas, as always, for your spectacular question. I hope that was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments, you, Lucas, and everyone else. And please like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And until next time, Charis Kairene Humin, grace and peace to you.